So the book itself is pretty old. It goes back about 12 to 14 years. The person who wrote it, Chet Holmes, he has since passed from leukemia, but was very well known as an outstanding outside salesperson, superstar salesperson, right? And that was a concept I did not buy into slash was aware of, is this concept of hiring superstars and what that means for your business and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of like that. That was a new thing for me. But this book, again, plenty of references all over the internet about it. Again, great book. I think I got it for under $10 as an ebook and blew through it. It was actually recommended to me from a rental company owner. So it came via the rental industry to me. So that's a good sign that it probably has some application. So anybody who knows me knows that I am focusing on, I'm gonna share screen 2. If this does not move forward, somebody can yell out to me and say, hey, that slide deck's not moving forward. But the idea was that I felt like the industry was at a crossroads in that rentals companies have to start looking external. Bottom Line Equipment was always a sales organization, sold rental as if they were selling equipment. And again, we see that with equipment distributors around the country representing, but a number of rental operations are still not focused externally to sell and expand in their marketplace. So that was kind of the gist on this thing that we're starting. So we'll keep it informal. We only have so many people on here. So if anybody wants to interrupt, feel free to interrupt. It's about a 45-minute presentation followed by plenty of time to talk at the end as well. We're 5 minutes into the PowerPoint at this point, so I had it running, but again, I'll keep an eye on it. It should be pretty easy to maintain. So did the slide move forward? Are we on slide 2? Excellent. Okay. So I found this on the internet. Awesome. This is a cut to the chase. So the idea that Chet Holmes shares is there's really 12 strategies that you should be aware of as a company. And if you are not the owner of the company, you certainly want to kind of sell this book and these topics. You want to sell them upstream and make sure that you get a good listen happening inside your company. So 4 main areas we'll focus on. We'll talk about what it means to change your management inside your organization in order to be ready for that. You're going to have to look at how you market, because any salesperson knows you have a marketing arm and you have a sales arm, and they have to be in sync with each other. So that's a critical piece. And then sales is what it sounds like. That's where we're going to focus most of our attention today. We're going to really focus on how do we change our business or move more towards outside sales focus as an organization. Lastly, we'll just talk about what it means to operate it. A number of you know what this means. If you are EOS traction people and you're implementing that, you're going to apply it, you're going to track it, you're going to improve it. So it's just a constant reworking and an improvement of your processes. So we'll start first with management. He makes a key point. This, by the way, is the most important part of the book as far as I'm concerned. It's the front end of the book. It talks about how do we create productive priority managers inside the company. That is something I've never seen addressed in a book before. I've seen priority management addressed, but I've never seen somebody talk about it in terms of, hey, what if you taught priority management internally and people, really started to apply it? So we'll talk about that. The critical role of training and what training means to your company in rental. We see training take place quite a bit with onboarding and orientation, but we don't see training sustained throughout people's tenures in the company. Some good information there. We'll talk about what meetings do for your company and, drive that forward. And obviously anybody implementing EOS knows what that's about. We'll also look at becoming a brilliant strategist. That happens at the leadership level in your company. And then last is hiring superstars and what to expect. So those are going to be the topics we address inside management. So first off, love the first couple chapters of this book. One of the things he says right out of the gate is he says, You need to move away from being a got-a-minute manager. So we have so many companies out there that feel that rental is a reactive business, and it's people running around going, got a minute? Hey, you got a minute? Hey, you got a minute? And there's resolution happening day to day, every minute, every minute. And so this idea of taking a reactive company and changing it to be a proactive company is very hard for anybody in rental to get a handle on. So I thought that was a great like initial statement to say, hey, here's, and he gave plenty of examples in the book about how you would do that, but that's a key piece. The next part with productivity management is really thinking about your to-do pile, your big rocks, your issues, and I'm going to throw a lot of traction, not EOS terms at you, but thinking about them in the context of impact areas in your company. So the rental operation that told me about the book, we talked about what it means inside rental. There's people management issues. There are rental asset management issues, which encompasses a lot. There's customer service and fulfillment issues, which might touch base with rental asset management issues. Financial controls and reporting, your typical collections and paying, and sales outside and inside, and then marketing separate from sales. Long-term planning, which has more to do with like strategy, operational improvements, and then we just picked an extra one and said, hey, I want to expand my business. So we're going to have issues that pop up that are related to expansion. So nothing new here. It's basically just saying that you can look at all of your to-do pile and you can put it into certain impact areas. You might have 4. You might, if you're an outside salesperson, yours might look different than this, right? So this is looking at it from the perspective of an owner. So next points that he was making in this section was, the idea of touching it once. So instead of moving piles on your desk around or moving things inside your business around and not getting them accomplished, put them into a space or a time frame or a calendar where you can touch it once and get it done. And this is all going to make sense because this webinar is about sales, but we need to get the table set first, right? Before we do that. So he talks about going into a week and making a list of 6 priorities, or going into a day and making a list of 6 priorities, and then taking time to identify, well, how much time will it take me to address these 6 priorities for the day? So if I want to look back on the day and say, this was a good day, what would it be that I'd want to have accomplished? So when you plan that day out and you prioritize those points, it's shocking how little amount of time it takes to get your big priorities done, right? It's like working on the right things first. So the one comment I make here is, how much time have you placed in brand new prospecting? So we're in sales, right? We're doing fulfillment. We're making customers happy. We want repeat referral. And we'll talk about repeat referral in a minute. But at the same time, it's like, there should be something in the business that's related to prospecting. Bottom line equipment has salespeople on the line here. They know what that's about. And again, we'll get into it from their perspective. What does their week look like? How do they spend their time, right? So next up, this is what I did. Was I used my Microsoft Outlook and I sat down on a Sunday night and identified some key areas for me, some impact areas. So number 1, health and well-being. I know that it's sharpening the saw, right? I got to do something for my health. And so I put in my workouts in yellow. In green, I put any admin or crap, stuff that just typically is not productive. Sometimes you get a surprise in your email and it's exciting, but for the most part, not. So I want to relegate that to a certain place. I don't want to have email rolling all the time on my desktop in front of me or on my phone when I'm walking around the rental store. Orange is client fulfillment for me. So in the peer group world, I got to talk to the members, right? Client fulfillment. I always think that's the bulk of what I do. And you can see here that I had to prep for some midpoint meetings. I had to do some calls with some members and things like that, maybe work on valuations, things like that. But purple was really what I'm interested in. I am a diehard sales guy at heart. I love sales. And so I'm looking at my week after week after week and not seeing purple anywhere, right? So this was the first week I decided to move forward with this commitment to new sales. And you can see that I found time, right? So you got, those are 1 hour segments. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours in 3 days of essentially new sales, a little bit of marketing discussion. But going forward, the goal would be that we would continue to do more and more of that. And then Red, my business and what I do in my job, there has to be a certain amount of financial control. So I wanted to make sure that I was making sure to attend to that. And in your case, it might have to be with accounts you're managing or new accounts and getting them established with financials or whatever it might be, with their billing or how they're going to handle their bills or their contracts, right? So next up, are you touching sales, right? Outside sales. So he makes a great point that he would like to see 2.5 hours of brand new prospecting daily in an organization. So if there's one salesperson, let's say your small operation doing 1.5 million rental, you've got an outside salesperson who's part-time, but also filling and doing other things. There should be 2.5 hours of activity around brand new prospecting. Fill in the blank, whatever number you think is appropriate, but you should be looking at it from that proactive perspective. Even if you are a reactive business and you're account managing. So if you're a salesperson or a counter person, there's going to be a lot of reaction going on and reactive, but we'll make a case here for also prospecting on the counter. So we'll talk about that in the future in the next couple of minutes. 4 hours of cold calling for those not managing house accounts. Again, the bottom line guys are probably snickering at that, but it's something that we see a lot of people not doing, external reach outs. And we just feel it's critical that, we start this approach of starting the relationship. And we'll talk about rapport building and how important that is. But starting the relationship through cold calling. If you're a new employee and you're just trying to get your feet wet, you should probably just cold call like crazy. People are afraid of rejection. And again, if you are, you're probably not suited for sales. But most people who are in sales know that you need to make 25 calls to get 3 or 4 decent things going in place, right? So keep that in mind. So let's talk about counter people. Service and collections. He does mention it at the beginning of the book, a little bit about that every touch is an opportunity. There's plenty of books out there around this topic, which essentially helps to convert people into sales organizations, convert companies into sales organizations. I recommend you use outside services to assess your business and to build a plan or help you build a plan. So we're going to recommend the call coach from Suzanne Wooten, who's worked with a number of our operations inside of the peer groups. And she just listens into the call. She hears how the counter person's working it. And so it's an opportunity to kind of assess that and help with upselling, help with being the best at customer service that you would need. So an example. So the person who recommended this book to me has 3 locations. They have 6 counter people. And what they did for the month of March was they said, we're going to do a 1-month experiment. And they pulled all their hibernating customers or whatever that list is called inside a point of rental. Alert has it as well. So depending on your management software, you'll find old accounts that haven't been active with you per se, inactive accounts. And they split the list up and they said, hey, make 3 calls a day. They provided a script. It was low impact script. It was basically, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on? Just checking in and see what you guys are up to this spring. Anything big coming your way? And so it was very, very basic, very easy to follow. They reported this information weekly through their L10s, which is an EOS term. It's a meeting that they have in their business. And then they stopped at 1 month. So they had 360 calls. They ended up reviving 18 accounts, which was great. It's like, how many of us are even doing that, right? Where we're going back after hibernating accounts and trying to connect back to them. This was done by counter people in their normal daily activity. This was not done by outside sales. So again, 5% success rate, make more calls, interact with more people. It's just the idea behind it. So that is the first section, which deals with priority management. Any immediate questions or thoughts around that? If not, and I'm going to look for chat too. So if you guys pop up questions in chat, I'll try to look for that as well. We'll move on to training now. So this was interesting. He had a lot of statistics behind this, but essentially only 10% of people out there have a learning mindset. So someone who picks up a book and reads it, 10%, right? So it's not a lot out there. You guys being on this call, you have a learning mindset, right? Because you're spending your time on a webinar. So clearly it's about trying to develop and grow and learn. And if you're forced to do it, I'm sorry about that, but you know, this is a good behavior for you to have. So companies must be consistent and relentless with training. We see a lot of people dip their big toe in. They are not consistent. They're not looking for training. They're not making it part of their plan. I've seen some awesome EOS Big Rock implementations around training in the last year or two. So we're seeing that start to change. If I sought out each employee for a one-on-one, would they make the cut? So this is great. I love to go into a rental store and walk around and talk to the employees and just start asking questions. You know, and I know nothing about rental or equipment per se, but I can just basically find out how much depth they have and how much comfort they have with representing the company just by me talking to them, asking some questions. So you want to essentially make sure everyone gets up to snuff at the same level and that there's some harmony amongst the employees in that no one's really lagging behind. If somebody is new and getting onboarded, they should be onboarded at some point, right? Whether it's 6 months or 90 days. So they should get up to speed. So training sets the standards and training will make you the money. Repetition is key. So don't be afraid to kind of go over it again or have little sessions for the group, lunch and learns around different things. And then you want to use any technology to track your training implementation, right? Let people check boxes in a spreadsheet. Let them, you know, be able to get recognized at some point for moving a step forward on training. But again, priority management first, training second, get yourself set up so that you can have this new volume coming your way. The last one is effective meetings. This thing was written in 2008, I want to say. So it's shocking how maybe EOS and Traction stole this concept, but they're saying, hey, have workshop meetings with your employees. Let them identify strengths and weaknesses internally. Let them identify opportunities and threats outside of your company. And then take those big rocks and implement them, right? Sounds pretty familiar. So I made a note here, Traction EOS equals L10 meetings. So it's this idea of, you know, having everybody working on the company and understanding where the gaps are currently in the company. They also talk about touch it one time, which in my mind is IDS, right? So anybody in EOS knows what identify, discuss, and solve a problem is. It means you're kind of like getting right to the crux of it, resolving it, or breaking it down into some smaller pieces, right? It's the idea. Let's see. Focus the meeting on sales challenges. So this is interesting. So I am a Traction facilitator as well. I do quarterly posting at rental operations, and I'm always surprised how little is focused on sales. And so, you know, if you're a sales organization, you're going to focus on sales all the time, and that has to change, right? We're going to have problems we're going to work out as a rental operation, but we are also going to now start talking about moving forward and promoting the company more externally. So that's a pretty critical thing. Lastly, you know, how do you implement the policy change? So if you're going to make this change, how will you implement it, and how is that, you know, that's discussed amongst your key leadership team. But that's really it on meetings. but I was surprised how similar it was to EOS. So we got those 3 under our belt. We're still in management, and we're going to talk about the last element, which has to do with hiring and staffing, right? So this part, I was like, oh, this chapter's going to suck. It's about hiring superstars. Never believed in that. I was always, we'll build the system and we'll put normal people in the system and they'll shine, right? They'll do great. He makes a really good case for hiring superstar. Essentially, you start thinking about it that the goal here is you're going to accelerate your growth. If you're looking at a 5% growth or 10% growth this year, you might not need a superstar, right? But if you want to go out of the box and you want to start to build and expand your business behind it, you're going to need a partner in growth, and that is your superstar. You got to test it first and make sure they're the right person. So do they think strategically? Do they have a proven track record? Do you want to talk about behavioral profiling? We can talk about culture index. We can talk about disc profiling. The idea is at least investigate what you think would be good from a partnering standpoint. There's a lot of different studies out there that will make you feel comfortable or uncomfortable with a hire coming in. I'm a high I. I love being a high I as far as disc profile goes. Means that I take rejection well. I can roll with the punches. I'm very optimistic and always think I'm going to be successful. But those are also the people that maybe not be good closers, right? Because they're kind of also empathetic, which means they're going to let the buyer off the hook. I totally understand why you would not do our solution, that kind of thing. So you do want to have some other qualities in that person, which I believe it's like a high D. Somebody who can make a quick decision, make a very direct decision with a customer or prospect. And again, that would be my ideal, maybe a high I with a D, but the D being right there. And again, apologies for anybody who doesn't know what a disc profile is. You can Google it and look it up after this session, but I just felt like it was an easy way to talk about what to expect from a person's personality / behavior. You can document what a superstar is to you and your business. That's helpful. Write a paragraph. What is your expectation for that person in that role? What's their compensation look like? How does that compensation, how much of that is variable comp versus base pay? How does that motivate the person? Those types of conversations, right? So get that going. And then he spends a long time designing an ad to attract the top producer. So it's very much focused on, if somebody in bottom line can make $250,000, then that's the ad, right? Because you want the person that's going to say, yeah, that's the kind of compensation I'm looking for. And then obviously you don't open the gate until you feel comfortable and they can prove themselves. Also building in a nice piece of variableness to it is helpful from that standpoint. So watch out for dreamers. Make sure there's a track record. There's a ton of salespeople out there who basically can make it happen, get it done, or at least that's what they tell you, right? So you want to make sure that you look out for dreamers, probe them on their history, attack their abilities. He does a great job. And one of the things he's known for, this author, is they bring him in to evaluate sales staff and prospects and recruiting. And he's basically saying, well, you and I both know this isn't the job for you. This isn't going to work for you. Correct. And so their response to that question, lots of times that approach catches them off guard. They could be the best candidate in the world. But how they respond to that question really will tell you whether they have what it takes to be a superstar salesperson. Are they coming right back at you? Or are they basically saying, tell me about that. What's that look like? So you essentially want to have that person who's not going to quit on you and, doesn't take it lying down, so to speak, and kind of gets their back up a little bit, comes back at you a little. So are they resilient or do they cave? Something to look at when you prospect. So that ends the management side. You now have that foundation established. It was like the first part of the book. Any questions on that? If not, we'll move to the next section. this moves very quickly, so I apologize. We're actually almost half an hour into this. The musts of marketing. So this was very interesting. I recommend, again, this part of the book as well. It's a good part. Understanding as a salesperson, you are limited by what you're selling, what you have available to you to sell and position, the assets, the categories of assets, all those types of things. And then also how you're presenting it. So we did an outside sales functional roundtable in the winter. And one person was hired as outside sales. They literally had zero marketing materials. They did not have a brochure. They didn't have anything. And I'm like, how is this working? Like, what do you present? How do you talk to someone if you don't even have anything? He didn't, I don't think he had a business card yet. I think he was using someone else's business card inside of the location. So it was just bizarre, but let's go through these 3 points. So be a brilliant strategist. I believe he probably wrote a book. The author probably wrote a book about this as well, because it was very well done. Talks about techniques versus strategies. So this is a mind thought process you have where, attending a trade show, going on a sales call to make a sale, running ads, direct mail, trying to get leads through campaigning, all those things are techniques. And what you're really looking for in the organization is to essentially establish a defined and detailed plan to achieve a long-term goal. So if you're going to grow if you're doing 2 million and you want to grow to 3 million, you obviously want to make sure you can fulfill that growth, and it has to be thought through. And to me, it's documented, right? Document the heck out of it. So you want to design and combine all the tactics, whatever tactics you're going to use to get that sales growth, and you must have your leadership team must be tactically focused, but also strategically focused. And we don't see that all the time. So in peer groups, we have a number of owner groups. And if their action items are tactics, we get concerned. And so we go back at them and say, hey, for your action items, let's talk about what is your strategy around growing your business, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that those conversations are happening internally. Otherwise, you're not going to get supported as the outside salesperson, or as an owner, you're not going to be able to get everything in place. So this would be the equivalent of a visionary and a integrator if you are an EOS implementer. So a couple ways we can look at this is, what are your employees' titles? So if an employee is outside and they're going to meet with people, are they going to be, is it going to be a turnoff for somebody to meet them, or is it a turn on? How do they represent themselves externally from your company? And there's a whole bunch of ways you can Google this and find different ways that you can change a title, maybe make it softer, such instead of being salesperson or vice president of sales or director of sales, it might be something along the lines of business development, or focused around relationship liaison, something like a relationship manager, different way that you would present it. So the goal ultimately, where a lot of this goes, is that you need to build rapport, and a relationship with the prospect must exist. So for those of you who got on this call and are looking at rental as a transaction, it won't address it that way in this book, right? So it's going to look at it and say, hey, it all comes back to relationship. I have always been a fan, and this goes back actually to lean back 20 years when I was part of the Association of Builders and Contractors, helping a couple rental operations really to start to, connect in with some construction management companies and other people who needed to rent equipment. And so that was just a place that we started, and it seemed to work pretty well. So the goal is always be aware you're renting equipment. You have to establish a goal. My goal, you look at me, Dan Crowley, I'm a peer group guy, right? Oh, Dan Crowley, he's a peer group. He must really love rental, right? He loves rental. Well, no, what I love is I love to sell insurance. So in order to sell insurance, I created peer groups, right? It became a way that I could build rapport with business owners so that I can sell insurance. So right now, this is my Mass Mutual. I have 2.6 million in cash in what are called supplemental executive retirement plans. That's just my Mass Mutual piece. If you look at Pac Life and New York Life, I'm closing in on 5 million. I've only been doing this for 6 or 7 years. It's going to probably be, without adding anything, it's going to be like a $20 million book of business before I know it. But people see me as a peer group guy who happens to be interested in rental. And really, I just want to get to know the rental owner and be there for them and develop deferred compensation packages, make sure that there's risk management in place on their business. So that was my niche, right? So I'm just like any other insurance guy you see on the street, except I'm not, right? Because I'm working the peer group scene. So you need to look at your message and how you're going to market, right? Are you just another rental company, or are you doing something that's vastly different than that? So I love this. They had a stadium analogy where you're like, you got your pitch and you're stepping out in front of the stadium. There's 10,000 people in the stadium. And your goal is to try to get sales happening, right? But this is what your audience is thinking right now. So 30% know they are not interested in what you have to say. And you're looking out there and you're like, okay, 30%, boom, gone. 30% don't think they are interested. They don't know why they're there. They're sitting there. Don't really know. I'm not sure. And then 30% is not thinking about it. So this is now you caught them. The timing that might not be right. Not sure what I'm thinking about. So now that's 90% of that stadium, right? At this point, 6 to 7% might say, that sounds interesting. I like your pitch. Let me think about it. And 3% are like, wow, you caught me. The timing's great. I'm buying it now, right? I love that the peer groups have WhatsApp and GroupMe, and they talk to each other on it, the different rental owners. And I love it when they go, hey, I was driving down the road and I stopped in and I made this call, and the guy goes, oh my God, thank you for calling because I'm so sick of Sunbelt, and the timing's right. You nailed it, right? So it's like, that's the 3%. So it's great, things happen and you're going to get that 3% all the time. But really what I want to see is I want to see some of this other mass converted, right? So how does that work? And if not converted, how do I make my mass bigger? How do I get into a bigger stadium, right? That kind of thing. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. So I like to use associations, i.e. partner in the American Rental Association to get to know more rental owners. There are other things you can do as well. So we're working with an outside sales organization who focuses on lifts, and they are really developing and growing the lift side of their business. And so they started to use Zoom Info, and Zoom Info gives them construction companies head to toe, right? Who's the president all the way down through different levels. It costs money, but again, gives them really key information. I did a purchase of Biz Leads. So at this point, I have 8,000 people, emails and phone numbers related to the rental industry and the SIC code related to the rental industry. My latest move with Zoe is we've now established a subscription with Connected. Connected is tied into LinkedIn. And really, the second part to this is you need to understand your target's industry. So I look at it and I say, and I'll get into a couple of examples of that in a minute, but let me walk you through my Connected idea. So this is LinkedIn. I've got a social selling index, tells me, and tells LinkedIn how much they can trust me, right? So am I going to come in and abuse their system? You need to be above a 65. I'm a little low. I just started doing this. But these are like, when you're liking somebody's post and all these types of things. I have 2,300 connections right now. As of yesterday, I had 8 pending that I need to look at to see if I accept them. So I said, I need to target some people here. When we first went in, we said, oh, anybody in rental, let's see what we can do with rental. And of course, 8,000 names come back. And so to do this particular sequencing that we want to do to go after people, we had to get a smaller pool. So we said, hey, there's 900 people in rental in California, Oregon, and Washington. Sorry, Michelle, no Hawaii there, but that's good because that means you won't be bothered by emails from me. So these are people, and I just pulled up, the first 10 that popped up. And again, Aurora Rents at the bottom is a client of mine. Bruce Hoff is a manager there. So I just need to be aware of people who I've already worked with or work with. And so what we did was we created an automated front end of our pipeline. So, I'm going out right now at a pace of 15 per day. This is all done by Robo Advisor, right? So this thing's pushing out and it says, hey, I noticed your role at your company. I noticed you're part of ARA. Think we can help each other. Let's connect. So 15 every day. I've had some success, probably 1 or 2 a day, 3 a day, maybe. And then for those who I've now connected with, I don't send them a message. This comes to them a day later. It says, hey, great to connect. We know things are challenging right now in rental. The ARA has been so helpful, but we know you want to learn from others who've been there, blah, 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 right? Still no response. I got a third one built that's just essentially saying, hey, just giving you a nudge. Do you want to have a conversation about how peers can benefit you? By the way, we'd love to give you complimentary benchmarks for your industry. Are you interested? So now, if you're in the same boat, you need to think about your funnel. And are you up in the ante? Are you giving them more for working with you? That kind of thing. Lastly, if I don't hear back after 3 days after the last one, then we say, hey, sorry, we haven't been able to work with you to share the benefits. Please reach out so we know whether we should move forward with another equipment rental operator. Again, creating that FOMO / oh my gosh, in my town, there's going to be another rental guy who works with peer groups and it's not going to be me, right? If they don't respond to any of that, it just disappears. This is extremely inexpensive. I think we're paying $200 a month. This is one sequence of rapport building, dialing bots, they're called, that kind of thing. I mean, you could do dialing bots, which is a phone service to do something similar. We are going to essentially go create a whole bunch of these, right? Because we only did 3 states. So we're going to slowly do all the states. And, I think our plan was to design, cut and paste these, clone these, design 2 every week, and then just keep, responding to what we get out of that. So again, this is just an example. Different ones exist in your place, and they're not necessarily have to be email or phone related. So strategic selling is next. This is, now we're moving from marketing into sales. Here we want to talk about who your ideal buyer would be. We also want to look at a Dream 100 strategy, and then we talk about what it means to kind of, what is a presentation in the context of a rental equipment sale, right? And how do you close that and all that? So let's move through this. So first off, are you spending money on, so every operator has a marketing budget. How are you spending your money? Are you spending money on TV, radio? Is it, very directed, or is it something that just broadcast out there? We sell to homeowners, and homeowners watch TV and homeowners listen to radio. So the number one is we're going to go through and establish your marketing plan from a perspective of who is your target audience and how do we get to them. So what does your buyer look like? You've heard this before. He does start, by the way, the author does start hitting some of the basic marketing 101 and sales 101 things. So, the good stuff I liked up front. The second part of the book was still good and it covered everything. So I probably am only gonna, I would say that this is the book for sales and marketing, but only because he threw in all this stuff, right? And he gives you some examples. So demographic, psychographic, really understanding what motivates. So demographics, who they are. Psychographic is like what's motivating that person to look at your rental assets, right? So the key here is really understand if you're offering a commodity. I see so many operators sitting in the peer groups and they say, well, we're not the cheapest in town, but at the same time, they don't make a case for their services. Or at least you can say, because everybody says, oh, we have the best service, okay, prove it. How does that work? And, give me some examples. Are there stories? Do you get promoted by your customers? All those types of things, right? But otherwise, you're just a commodity, and you better compete on rental rates. So you could tell me you're not the cheapest in town, and I'll say, that's fine. You can continue to be the size you are, and other people will grow around you. So you need to really decide that you are different and that your rates do deserve to be different. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. So are you offering a partnership with the customer, the target you're going after? So in my case, I want to sell insurance to a rental operator. I'm offering a partnership. I'm saying, hey, I'll help you with other things as well. We'll create peer groups. We'll help you with your business. I'll learn rental if that's helpful. I've learned rental over the years. And again, you could do the same thing. And I'll talk to you about some options available to you that you might want to take advantage of. So I made this joke, obviously, give them peer groups for for your customers, and then sell them insurance. But you'd be giving them peer groups and get them to rent rental equipment, right? So have you ever seen construction contractors or construction management companies follow salespeople to new companies? And if you have, a couple of things. Number one, person might be a superstar, number one. Number two, that means that they're following the relationship for a reason, whether that person's come through on service side before, where they trust that person about what they know about construction. So again, always unpack that and look at that and say, in what cases have we been able to follow, or have we seen people follow salespeople to new rental operations? So Dream 100 strategy. This one's not that hard to do, but it does take time. So all of these items, by the way, I could see somebody sitting through this and being frustrated and saying, oh my God, because this only works over a long period of time. It doesn't happen overnight. We see people hire outside salespeople and then they get rid of them 6 months later, right? So create your Dream 100 list. Who are the people you want to work with in your market? Who are the construction companies that you drive around every day and you see other people's equipment out on their job sites, right? What does that mean? Like, we can't beat them on price today, but can we beat them over time from a relationship standpoint? So you want to establish campaigns and playbooks. Again, those are techniques. You want to market with force. And what I mean by that is you spend the big money, you commit consistently over time. And again, it's with force. It's not dipping your toe in. It's not spreading your advertising dollars over a ton of places. It's really zeroing and saying, this is where we're going to bet the farm on. I love this. He talks about finding the best neighborhoods. Now, he's obviously talking about consumer goods, selling something business to consumer, right? But I think with regard to business, I like looking at, hey, I want to be the best in the neighborhood in the best neighborhood, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean, the wealthiest neighborhood. It just means where my target market would be. I want to be the big thing there. So we have 3 examples here. Shout out to Michelle. She's the third one. So MK Equipment in Honolulu, they have a day of service. They're trying to connect out to the community, get the message out. And we'll talk about how you can use that, by the way, Michelle, on the next couple slides here. Lepo Rents in Ohio, outstanding outreach initiatives and fundraising, things like that. And Rayburn Rentals in Amarillo, Texas, really has nailed it with the crawfish boil. They probably have done more to add new clients, but also to recruit people to their company, because the vision that 200 people see of that company on that particular day every year is very powerful, and it's probably their number one recruiting device to get new employees. So next thing they talk about is Dream Affiliates. I'm big on this, and I do see the time, so I will continue to move quickly. I work with Ami Kassar, James Waite, ARA, other consultants and vendors. You see us offer benefits to you guys that are on our website that are not anything to do with peer groups, but could be beneficial to you. I say do the same thing, right? Look at ABC, the World of Concrete vendors that are out there. Are you going to World of Concrete? Are you going to the shows that your customers target? Family Business Institute cracks me up that I don't see more rental operations participating or trying to be involved with this. So I'm in a peer group, and in that peer group is the Family Business Institute. I represent equipment rental. They represent construction contractors and management companies. They have about 600 members right now. They get all sorts of benefits, but they are mainly there for peer group meetings. So again, anybody wants an introduction there, I know the owner very well. He's in my peer group, right? So we can make a connection in your market related to FBI members who are in your targeted area, right? Any other local partners in the market, and then doctors use a thing called pro2pronetwork.com to start networking. They do go into lifetime value of clients and also the power of referrals. And keep in mind that this is a program, and who you are or how you are as a company, not necessarily something you're going to do for 1 year and stop, right? So keep that in mind. So this part I can kind of cut through pretty quick. So this is the 7 musts of marketing. And all they do really is they kind of identify, the author identifies how do I do this excellently, right? So if I'm going to look at advertising my company, how do I do it and how am I an expert at it? Direct mail is also email, direct email. How do you make that work? Brochures, public relations, people, which is really, again, has to do with whoever's representing you to the market. And then market education, I think, is huge and not necessarily something everybody does. But again, doing things at trade shows, speaking, YouTube videos where you have training for your end users. And then online presence, which is, again, harvesting / building rapport and selling a certain image of yourself to the market. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I will say that when you do advertising, wherever you end up, there should be a headline to hook them, and then the body copy is really there to kind of link them in. So we try to make it, you should try to make it exciting for them. Depending on the media, how would you do this, right? So when you think about billboards, radio, TV, I've seen it where somebody in rental ends up with a great marketing firm working with them, and they design a series of messages that really pop and work. And I just wish they would use it longer, right? Because I think it starts to work after a while. So in our case, I thought this was one of our better things this year. We got some statistics about our customers, and we know that peer groups, independent owners, rent over $1 billion in construction each year. So again, that becomes important if we direct it. It shows the power of the peer groups, the influence we might have. Also, the top one shows that we buy $500 million in construction equipment each year. So when we're sitting down with Machinex and we want Machinex to sponsor events for you guys, we show them these statistics, right? The last one is that we also sell $3.5 billion in construction equipment every year. That has been very interesting to Bitadoo. It's been very interesting to Ritchie Brothers. So these are kinds of the things where we're trying to use information that could be useful and not necessarily be about like, hey, peer groups are about rental guys who learn from rental people who learn from each other, right? So make it education based, identify a pain point possibly. An exercise you can go through on this would be to try to write down 5 to 10 major sales points of why a prospect would want to buy your product over another. And this is extremely frustrating and very, very difficult, because if it's just basic, it's not going to stick, and we'll throw it out and we'll say, nope, try it again, do it again, get it better. And it may be very specific, like where you have a very specific thing you've done. We have a person recently who put those slats, the construction slats, I forget what it's called, but they started buying them and started renting them. And to me, it was like, go, let's run with this, because, they probably had 20 new construction companies and different targeted equipment rental targets just from doing this, whatever the heck that thing's called, that you cover up the hole or whatever. And we're actually, because we like what they were doing, we now are offering that to our members, and they can buy them through us at a discount. So it's just another example of that. So create a series of 1-page promotional pieces on each of those 5 to 10 points. see how it turns out. Let's see what comes of it. Again, something you can use when you're on a sales call. So next piece was press release. This one, I thought this was hilarious. So here's a Facebook post in peer executive groups. I posted it, but I posted it of a picture that's, and I don't know if this was actually, yeah, I could have done this even further. So how many promos do you see in this ad, right? So I could have taken this post from Garrett's post, and in it you see my mug, which is our Peer Talk mug, right? But you see Badger Rental in a magazine where he was promoted, right? So is this like a multiple promotion? So promote the promotions. When we created Top Gun for a reason. We wanted you guys to have quarterly, top quartile to compare your data with. But what we did was I thought was pretty smart. We started to create that list and make a press release and push it out to 5 or 6 magazines. We also pushed it out to you guys who, if you made the list, then you pushed it out. So all of a sudden people were like, well, what's peer groups, right? So it just was this kind of thing, gift that kept on giving that we can kind of go through. So same thing for you when you do a press release, think about how you're going to promote it and push it out, and then obviously use it when you're doing your sales calls. So this is presentation in rental sale. And he did a good job of basically recognizing that there are companies that don't present like this picture, that you actually could be sitting with somebody or standing on a job site and you just have a moment, right? So the idea is to get that scripting down, go through this process, look at these 8 items here, and somehow, some way, you find a way to get this crystallized and useful and the most effective thing you can do. So if you're in a company with 3 outside salespeople, somebody's got this figured out, right? Or they're getting there. So you just keep working the story, working it until it becomes critical. And I like number 6, think each headline is a valuable real estate. So don't waste time on stuff that might work or sort of works. Just focus on the ones that you know are successful and use them again and again and again. Be confident in it, but don't be obnoxious about it. So this is an exercise for you to try. So doing a briefing to your target. So this is fascinating. So instead of selling them on rental, talk to them about the state of their industry. We have so much information about what is happening in construction and what is happening in specific areas of construction in your market as well as nationally. So, what is happening? What's going on? And then if there's a way to come up with 5 trends in the industry that can hurt you or help you and how it applies to your customer, this is a great thing to put in there. Some solutions everyone should know to succeed. So what are some ideas that are basic, things that can be implemented that they can use that will help them to succeed? And it might have to do with using the right tool for the right job. You can kind of look at that. And lastly, how they can be ahead of the pack in every way. So remember, this is targeted at them, helping them. So especially those big top 100 that you're looking at, you might want to go through this process and find a way to get it in front of them. So that being said, getting close to the end here, I just feel like a good way for you to use this webinar, because it's recorded and you can go back and look at the slides. Also, I can push out the slide deck, so that's probably even more useful. So there are 6 steps to get going to really kind of take the book and implement the book, right? So number 1 is to choose your Dream 100. Number 2 is I like this idea of choosing gifts or swag or whatever it might be that softens the conversation, right? So if you're a new peer group member, or if you visit our booth, you get different gifts, right? So if you're a new peer group member, you get an onboarding kit, and in that kit, you get a traction book, which is nice. People like books. I recommend you do that for yourself with your customers. Traction book is pretty powerful. We also put sunglasses in there because we want people to remember that peer groups is fun and that we have great locales for our meetings. And so there's sunglasses in there, but we also have other useful things that we help to promote who we are. So we want them to listen to Peer Talk, which interviews business owners. And so we give them a nice mug. And so that mug has our logo on it about Peer Talk. They know to look at Apple Music or Spotify or whatever it might be. So you can do the same thing for your customers and your targets. One of the big rocks that was being implemented at a rental operation was, tiers, 3 tiers of gifting based on target. So once you've done those kind of things, then you want to go ahead and create that, like I did with my sequence that you saw inside LinkedIn. You're going to create your dream 100 letters and or pieces that you're going to push out, whether it's email or handoff or whatever it might be, or might be even a script on the phone. But create your dream 100 calendar. So what does it mean to you over the course of 12 months to touch base with those people? So go back to the priority management side and say, hey, I'm going to make sure this is part of my daily activity. And then there's follow-up to say, hey, I'm following up on this. And then lastly, you do want to get to a point where you can present an executive briefing that could be useful to them. So those are some ideas. The sales step and getting into closing the sales, I just want to touch on that, and then I'll let you go, because I know it's been close to an hour. So first off, this is like anybody who's ever looked at Sandler selling systems or anything. There is, they use the concept of a submarine, and one compartment must be completed before you move to the next one and that kind of thing. But these are really 7 things that you should do during the course of a sale. And you can actually look at your prospects and say, hey, where are we at in the sales process? Did we establish rapport? We're still in that section, boss, right? You can kind of say, this is where we are. Number 2, qualify the buyer, find the need. Do we know what the target would be? What would be the rental solution that would be going there? 3, we need to build value. What's the deal that we can cut? What's it look like? 4, you create the desire, make sure they understand their pain, make sure they understand how you're going to resolve their pain. Number 5, any objections, you need to have a case for overcoming them. Number 6 is close the sale, and if you're not the closer, get out of the way and let somebody else go in to close it. Last is follow-up, and follow-up in the book, he does a great job to show that there's a lot of work that's involved after the closing of sale. It's not just a transaction, right? It's a relationship. So there are things that you must do during the follow-up stage. So make sure that you remember to read that portion of it. So here's your exercise. So in this PowerPoint, there's like 4 exercises. So here's another one. And the book, by the way, has a ton. So there's probably like 12 exercises. I just used 3 or 4 in this presentation. Number 1, you want to write down 8 things you can do to close more sales. And that one is tough, right? It's not something that easily happens. All of these exercises, by the way, don't like sit down and say, I'm going to do this for an hour. Have it be like part of who you are for the quarter. Like, I need to get this done. It might be a big rock that we're just going to have to work through and have everybody chip in on. What can you add to encourage an immediate purchase? So that's that concept of me giving them free financial benchmark to close the deal, to get them to respond to me. You can also, how can you use risk reversal, which essentially says there is a risk if you do not work with me. What does that look like? And certainly you can Google that concept and find out more about that. Any deal sweeteners that may be temporary and or something that allows them to be at a certain tier if they're able to give you a certain amount of volume, that kind of thing. And then lastly, any freebies that are useful, helpful. We have a 10-day music festival, which has 10 headliners. And so we have a rental company that is part of the sponsorship of that. And so they have the ability to gift out stuff for that. And again, it's freebies. It's helpful to build rapport, because the goal is to build rapport, not to do a transaction, right? So you're going to see that. This is just when we talked about how they were detailed on the follow-up. I did decide to put a slide in to explain how they talk about follow-up. So, whether they become a customer or not a customer, you should be considering what is our follow-up and how do we continue to build rapport after the sale. So letter goes out, call goes out. Did you get my letter? Just want to make sure we appreciate your business. You might want to then have the next touch be something amusing or personal, something relatable. Next one might be meal or drinks, do some kind of bonding with them. And again, this is assuming that you're focused on sales growth, right? So if you're not, these are things you'll say, oh my God, this is crazy. But I will tell you that if you're a sales organization, this is normal behavior, right? So if I sell insurance, my goal is to make sure that I keep doing these things after I've sold insurance. Another letter, another card, invite them to an event, help them with their business, do another letter after that, offer more help and invite them over. So you can make it where your business is systemically doing follow-up. So it doesn't have to be from you, right? I've got a robot thing working LinkedIn for me right now. So in addition to that, I'm doing fractional marketing people. So I'm doing all these marketing interns. I'm trying to hire as many as I can to help with this process of systematizing sales inside the company. Again, recommend that you look at that for yourself. And then at the end of the book, he just talks about activating that master plan and implementing it, right? So how do I apply it? Tracking is key, just like inside your EOS meetings, and then you want to improve it from there. So when you have all systems go, the next step is really, what is our goal and how are we going to measure that we're having success? Because not everything is successful, so you may have to alter your plan. Just be aware that that could be the case too. So that is it. Any questions, comments? I know that was a lot of information. It was a full book you got in 1 hour.
Yes, Dan, I was wanting to know, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint?
Of course. So Scott wants a copy, and I'll make sure anybody who registered for the event gets a copy of it. So as long as you're registered, you'll get it. Bottom Line has access to everything, so it's not a problem. Leonard has carte blanche with all this stuff. So any other questions?
Dan, I'm curious, that business owner who gave you the book, so how are they doing? Have they moved forward from their initial implementation of 5% success?
Yeah, so they are, their sales are up. They do rate of change every month, and they look at their growth. The growth is up. They have one outside salesperson who they have now put on 100% commission. They have not transitioned to a outside sales organization, but I'm actually their coach. So the plan is that we do the quarterly pulsing and that the big rocks all start to move this direction. And we start to make sales growth the focus. They're in a market where they absolutely can grow 25% in the market that they're in. So it's just a matter of making sure that they're working on the right things. Like one of the rocks was that they had to change the garage doors, right? So that's not the rock I want focused on for that kind of growth. But yeah, this was read in December by the owner. I read it in January. So we've had a couple of quarterly pulses. We're moving there.
Nice.
Anything else? All right. Well, I will stop the recording and I will get you guys a copy of this link and then also send you the PowerPoint so you have it. But, if you don't have the book, recommend it. There is another book that I hope to do a follow-up on. It's related to marketing and it's called Lobster on a Cheese Plate. So that's going to be my next one. It goes actually hand in hand with this, very much focuses on marketing. So we'll probably try to do that in the beginning of September.
Dan, are you going to be corresponding with this group on your next sessions if we want to set some of our sales guys up?
Absolutely. So what we try to do, just like anybody else, we try to harvest you for additional activity with the peer groups. So our outside sales group and anybody who attends any of our sales and marketing get lumped, like we put a little flag on you and say, this person's interested in sales. And so then if we do another virtual roundtable of sales and we have 10 different companies on there talking about outside sales, or if we do anything related to sales, that group is the primary focus. So, showing a little bit of our secret sauce there, but, we know that it's useful for everybody to connect.
Great, thank you.
All right, gang. Well, appreciate you being here. And by all means, you should have my email up here on the screen. Send me a direct email. Summer is very light, so I can help you with any of these exercises. Or if you want to start establishing a plan, I can help you do that. And we can do that virtually, no cost, just get you started on some foundational stuff.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. See you, Amelia.